Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about the 5 things that I will not be repeating again in a small garden. These are the mistakes or things that I noticed last year that didn't work out for me that I want to share with you. But first, as you can see today, my perspective is a little different today. I am sitting right on top of a ladder. I've got this dragon fruit poking at me. Anyway, it's a mess out here on top of more mess because we recently had a crazy storm. I can't even remember if we ever had this much rain. It was like nonstop for days. And I really cannot remember if that ever happened in the time that I've been in Southern California. So for those of you who are impacted by the storm, I hope you guys are doing okay. So is your garden. Also, I want to thank you guys for your support on my WENDILAND.com shop where I had the loofah seeds available for a very short period because I did not have that much seeds to offer at this time, but there will be more coming up, so be sure to stay tuned and I will announce it on social media. Anyway, let's start with the number 1 thing I will not be repeating in this garden this year. I used to go by the more is more style gardening in this small space because I was so obsessed with plants, but with this year having some changes which I will share more with you guys about in a future episode. Yeah. I just want to look for something that's a little more low maintenance this year. Things that would once I get the things set up, the plants and the garden would be able to take care of itself a little more. So the more is more is doable, but it's definitely more maintenance involved. Say if you plant things that are a little too close together, you will, they don't have enough space to grow. They don't have they'll shade off each other. And so you have to actually be more proactive in pruning to maintain that space between each plant. So overplanting can really cause stress to, the neighboring plants. So if you're looking for like a low maintenance type of a garden, don't do that, especially in a small space. For me, everything is planted between like 6 to 12 inches apart, so it's very difficult to get something to actually have come to a decent size. And if it does, then the neighboring plants may compromise, or you would have to grow some more shade-loving plants to be their companion plants. So this year it's more about minimizing for me, meaning I would find plants that have more high productivity, plants like cherry tomatoes or Cape gooseberries, which are actually fruiting right now in the winter. So it's such a great winter treat for me. I'm going to be growing things in hanging baskets, which sounds like a lot of work, but once I get the irrigations all done, they're going to be taking care of themselves. Smaller varieties of cherry tomatoes or ones that kind of cascade over on in hanging baskets. I'll definitely continue to grow my medicinal herbs like ashitaba. It does really well here, especially in the shade part. I have a lot of shade places here. Also some leafy greens, herbs. I really love all those, and they're just really easy, low maintenance kind of a plant. Another leafy greens that I will keep growing. In fact, I'm actually thinking of moving that one there to somewhere right behind me here. I'll talk more about later on. But this one is a cacti. It's one that's somewhat more drought tolerant than the regular leafy greens, but it is a cacti from the tropics. It's not one that you're thinking of typically in the hot desert. But yeah, this one has leafy greens that you can eat off of this cacti, of a cactus, kind of like a growing vine. Also, has beautiful fragrant flowers that really attract the bees in the fall, and then they fruit and they're edible and nutritious. Definitely something high productivity. Another thing is I am so obsessed with beautiful flowers, and if they are edible, that's a huge bonus for me. So the fuchsias actually are edible. The berries are quite delicious when you wait for them to fully ripen. And those do really well as hanging baskets, so they don't take up that much room. I get to just hang them and I can still have a clear walkway or something. So to learn more about some of these plants, I do have videos on that. I will link it down below for you. So the second thing I will not be repeating in this garden is to over purchase and taking way too long to decide on where to grow things. Just being indecisive, I think, is what really delaying on planting, because I sometimes just spend too much time thinking about where to put plants because I really want the perfect spot for them. If you take too long to decide, you miss that season already. Also with vegetables, I assume many of us are growing also like annuals anyway, so you really want to just put them in the ground or put them wherever you want to transplant them. Do it soon. At least you get to enjoy some rather than none. If you leave them in, you know, their original like little plant start pots, you're not even giving them a chance, and you're not even giving yourselves a chance, especially when you're starting annuals from seed or purchasing these plant starts, you know, that are annuals. You definitely want them to get in the ground soon so they can start producing. They grow and produce very quickly. When annuals and quick turnaround ones are going to be like your beets, lettuce, salad greens, you know, the arugula I really love, things like that, is still not late at all for even, you know, southern growers. Oh, sugar snaps and sweet peas are definitely something worth growing. They're fast to grow and they're just so yummy. You can grow them all the way to, you know, pretty much when it starts getting hot. All right, the third thing I will not be repeating is to grow plants that have low productivity, such as the different rare varieties of bananas I have. Bananas are super cool. The flowers are like gigantic, and it's just so, it brings me so much joy whenever I see them flower. However, they take up so much space. Because I'm not in the tropics, bananas do grow slower, especially in the winter. So you're expecting to see one flower stalk per plant. Each plant would take between like 1.5 or even 2 years to see fruiting once, and you get a huge stalk when it does. But sometimes they actually don't even pollinate that well to get like a long, like huge rack of bananas. When you have lack of space, it's just not worth growing bananas. Another thing I will not be growing is the one behind me. Sometimes the dragon fruits, as cool as the flowers look and as tasty as the fruits get, it just doesn't have enough of that kind of fruits to justify for the space, unless that's totally okay if that's what you're super into. And but for me, this year I'm trying to grow things with lower maintenance so that if I'm away, the garden can mostly maintain itself. There's actually a really big chance that I'm going to be just offer up these cuttings, and then I will replace it with the Barbados gooseberry in here. It just justifies it a lot more for me in this space. Another thing is pineapples. Pineapples take up a lot of room the bigger they get, and it does take about 18 months or so, give or take, to get one fruit off of each plant. So it's super cool, it's super delicious when you get to have the fruits, but again, if you're trying to go for like high production or high yields or want to grow quite a lot of varieties, the pineapple is just something that takes long to produce and takes up quite a bit of space as well. I have sugarloaf, I believe, and it's just so hard for me to get rid of because I just know it's going to be really tasty. However, I'm still struggling right now thinking, where can I plant this? But I definitely will not be buying more of these types of plants, but the ones that I have, it's probably a little hard to part with, so I can only get rid of certain things. Fourth thing that I will not be repeating in this garden, and that is growing things that are tall in front of, you know, other things. Definitely get to know your space and where the sun rises and however the sun, like the movement of it. In this garden, the sun travels like that, like this. So definitely anything that's in the front here is south facing. So you definitely want to have growing shorter plants in the front or like over here, and then something against this side of the house. Against the house would be something taller. This is more because of a space issue. When you have a lot more space in between, you don't really have to worry about this as much. Even though you might get a little bit of diffused light, you still get a lot of bright light and sun, you know, compared to a small garden. Like every 6 inches makes a difference. The mistake I made was to plant the banana in front of some, you know, the other plants. I was hoping that the bananas would get tall enough that I can just harvest, you know, cut down the lower leaves. Then it would just offer like more like a little bit of diffused light, which is still bright enough for the plants behind it. However, in the winter, we barely get any sun. The space is very compromised because I put that banana there. And I knew from the beginning that wasn't like a great move, but I got quite a few varieties that I didn't know where else to plant it, and I just wanted to, you know, take that chance and see what happens. I feel like I'm so invested at this point. I need to at least have the original plant fruit. But all the puffs around, I'm just going to remove them, and I'm going to minimize and eventually probably just come down to just growing one banana. It's like the super, I don't know, rare or my favorite one or something, just to keep it around, I guess, because I still like bananas. But yeah, pay attention when you're growing in a small space because every few inches does matter. The yam or the ube was also another issue growing, you know, because it's something tall growing in front of something shorter. The GreenStalk with the sweet potatoes, it's like at a shorter height, and it totally blocked out the sun even in the summer. But that's why those ubes are growing. They're growing so wonderfully. I didn't expect them to get that lush to the point that it's just so solid it couldn't let any light through it. Definitely plants behind it compromise, but it's totally fine if you do plan on getting the other side, like creating shade for the other side to grow more shade-loving plants. That's all good. But for me, this space, I think sunny spots is very valuable. All right, the fifth thing I'm gonna leave you with is something I actually started to really came to accept, is having an arc trellis. I always wanted an arc trellis. I love the way it looks, and I was so excited when I first put it up. The problem with that is in a small garden, it's better to have an arc, you know, in the middle somewhere. Like whenever you're setting up something like that, should have enough space all around the arc, because in my space, this trellis is shoved right against the solid fence. So it really just blocks off a lot of light for the plants under, and the plants to climb up just takes a lot longer because of lack of light. And I want it to be somewhat manageable, so I made this arc a bit short. In this garden, things do not get like really truly exposed to the sun unless it gets up to about like starting like 5 feet and up. So when you are designing out a space and building structures for your plants, for your garden, definitely pay attention to, you know, like anything that's close to the walls is definitely going to be more diffuse light. It's going to be more shaded. Having a tall flat trellis is definitely better for this space. That's why I ended up putting the trellis on a slope. Everywhere on this trellis will be receiving full sun throughout the day, because that's where the sun sets. And then with the arc trellis, whenever you have like a rounded corners, or as it's like kind of curving down, you're losing light as well. Eventually, I'm going to be removing this arc and then extending the tilt of this trellis and just make it like one long piece. So yeah, those are my tips for you guys. I hope you find them helpful. Let me know if you guys experience any kind of issues like me, or what will you not be repeating this year? Let me know in the comments below. And so I'm definitely looking forward to be sharing more gardening, planting videos with you guys, as well as some gardening in the tropics coming soon. I hope you guys will enjoy those as well. Like and subscribe to this channel for more. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!